Hey, this is Pastor Jean Daniel, and I want to talk to you a little bit from the book of Luke chapter 5 about the idea of vocation. Vocation is a Christian word that comes from the Latin vocare, to call. Sometimes we also just use the English word calling. Now, a vocation is something that God is asking you to do. We often in churches use it to refer to those of us who become pastors or priests, feeling the sense of God calling us to full-time work as ministers. But God actually calls all Christians, because the first call is the call simply to follow Jesus Christ. For some of us that means changing jobs, and for many of us it doesn't. But the call, the invitation to follow Jesus, is for everybody. Now in Luke chapter 5, some men are fishing. Simon, who we met in the previous chapter as a man who needed a miracle for his mother-in-law, and got one, as she was sick and then healed by Jesus, is out fishing and having a bad day at work, not catching anything. But fishing was his livelihood. He owned a boat, he owned nets, he was invested in it as a career. Miraculously, through Jesus, his boat is overflowing with fish. And that shows that if Jesus wanted Simon to stay a fisherman, he could make Simon a very successful fisherman indeed. But Jesus has a different vocation for Simon. And he says, "Don't be afraid, Simon," in verse 10. "As soon as you obey me, from now on, you will be fishing for people." Now, as soon as they brought the boats to the shore, they left everything and followed Jesus. Don't be afraid. The angels use that phrase when announcing to Elizabeth and to Zechariah and to Mary and Joseph the birth of John the Baptist and the birth of Jesus. The angels use the phrase, "Don't be afraid," when announcing the birth of Jesus to the shepherds. And Jesus uses the phrase, "Don't be afraid," when calling Simon to drop his nets, drop his fishing career, and follow him as a disciple. Following Jesus is scary. Otherwise, he wouldn't say, "Don't be afraid." But it's always worth it. Now, as you grow up, you'll have to figure out your vocation, which is a question of not only what are you going to be when you grow up, what kind of job you're going to have, but how you're going to use that job to follow Jesus. I strongly believe you can follow Jesus in nearly any job. If you're using your talents and your gifts that God has given you to provide for yourself, to provide for a family, and to make the world a better place, that is a noble vocation. But it is always worth asking, what is Jesus calling me to do? Because being called isn't something for the special. It's not just for Peter, it's not just for apostles, it's not just for pastors and priests. It's for all of us. We're all being called. Let's pray. God, help me hear the thing you are calling me to be. Help me hear your voice. Help me figure out what to do, what to study, and how to use all of that to help other people and to serve you.